I just want to explain these two verses of invocation because we have many new students with yoga who have joined recently. So these are two verses. The one is well known, that is, I think that is chanted in many places where yoga sutras are taught. Yogena chittasya padena vacham malam sarirasya cha vaidyakena yopa kuruttam pravaram muninam patanjali pranjali ranatosmi. It is a verse that gives tribute to Patanjali, the author of the Yoga Sutras. Yoga Sutras are 195. If you include the one that we discussed earlier, 196. And Patanjali is invoked. He is considered to be a great sage who lived roughly about 1900 years before Christ, 1900 BC. And he made very significant contributions to three branches of knowledge. His most well-known contribution, of course, is Yoga Sutras. So he wrote these Yoga Sutras to clean human mind, to cleanse human mind of all impurities. So Chittasya malam apakarod means he removed the dirt and filth of human mind. So how to refine our mind, our emotions, our feelings, and how to keep our mind in a healthy condition. And Patanjali's students, those who came in that lineage, in their commentaries, they explained this by cleaning the mind, by refining our mind. Patanjali means turning our mind into our best friend. And this is possible only by removing all vrittis, vasanas and samskaras. Actually by going beyond itself, beyond mind. So that's why we have been discussing during the last 2-3 sessions, we are discussing some sutras in which Patanjali is very eager to establish that mind is not the ultimate decision maker, mind is not the ultimate perceiver, mind is not the ultimate seer, mind is not the ultimate subject. Purusha is the ultimate subject. So one may ask this question, why Patanjali quarrels with the Yogacara philosophers, Vijnanavadins? There's a strong point in that. His purpose was to clean human mind. And how does he instruct this method of cleaning our mind, refining our mind, purifying our mind? By removing all impurities. So malam, yogena chittasya malam means. So through yoga, he removed the dirt and filth of human mind. Actually, malam means human waste, really speaking. So how did he do that? By going beyond mind, by identifying the Purusha behind the mind. If you consider mind itself as the ultimate subject, then you are in a very slippery ground, philosophically speaking. How can our mind be the ultimate subject? How can our mind be the most important or the absolute category in a system of philosophy or even spiritual life? Mind is always changing. Mind is always mutable. It becomes happy now, becomes unhappy later. It is disturbed, and again it changes its moods, its emotions and feelings. So such a mind is always wavering. how can that mind be the ultimate subject? No. So Purusha is the ultimate subject. That's why he established in the earlier sutras the Purusha is aparinami. So that's an important point that he established. Again and again he emphasizes this point. Purusha is the ultimate decision maker. So it is sada jnataha chitta vritteha tat prabhoho purushasya aparinamitva. This is an important point. Remember, Purusha is only aparinami. So, this is an important point, remember. Therefore, what Patanjali does is, he tells the Vijnanavadin philosophers, the Buddhist philosophers, that you are wrong, mind can never be the ultimate subject. It is Purusha that's the ultimate subject. And then, of course, the next two sutra verses are simple. He also wrote the most voluminous, the most exhaustive commentary on Sanskrit grammar, Patanjali Mahabhashyam. And also he is supposed to be the author of a commentary on Charaka Samhita. There are some scholars who tell you that he himself was the great sage Charaka, one of the great sages in the Ayurvedic tradition. The next verse is simple. It again expounds the tradition, what you call the parampara, the heritage. It's called Munitrayam, the three great sages. So Patanjali is the author of the sutras, Vyasa is the author of the commentaries, and Shankaracharya is the author of a commentary on Vyasa's commentary, or a commentary based on Vyasa's commentary is called Vivarana. So Sutrakara is Patanjali, Bhashyakara is Vyasa, and the Vivaranakara, which is called in Sanskrit, means author of Vivarana, the commentary, is Shankaracharya. Is a tribute to these three sages. So the reason why I mentioned this, I think we perhaps forgot to mention the initial announcements, so that you can always remember. Sometimes it happens, So maybe at the end of the session we can do that. So anyway, so what the idea is, in these sutras, Patanjali is very eager to establish the fact that mind is not the ultimate subject. Mind is not the ultimate seer. Because he found during his time many philosophers of the Yogacara, Vijnanavada system who were telling that there is nothing beyond mind. And that mind is also ultimately unreal. It is momentary, it's changing all the time. So the concept of what you call different minds, various minds, so many minds, every split second one mind emerges, and that mind sees or experiences something, and next moment it disappears, and again new mind comes. So this actually leads to a kind of ad infinitum. I mean, a state of never coming to a conclusion, like what came first, the seed or the tree. There is no end to that argument. Or the hen or the egg. There is no conclusion to that argument. So that's why he emphasizes the point, Purusha is the ultimate reality, the effulgent reality. This because now we are coming to the end of the text. So during these occasions, this discussion comes again and again. So please keep this in mind. The reason why Patanjali suddenly indulges in some kind of a dialectical confrontation with the Vijnanavadins, school of Buddhism, is that Vijnanavadins argued that there is no such thing, there is no such aparinami, unchanging entity like Purusha. The only thing that you can think of is a mind, and that mind comes into existence every moment. It also disappears next moment, and a new mind comes, And so that itself is something momentary. It's called kshanika in the language of Vijnanavadins. Now we'll come to the subject. That's a context here. 20th Sutra. Chittandra drishe buddhi buddhehi adiprasanga smriti sangarascha. The subject we are discussing here. If you agree with the Vijnanavadins that mind is, or called chittam, here of course mind is chittam. If mind or chittam is the ultimate subject, there is nothing beyond mind, then there will be what you call adiprasanga. Adiprasanga again is an ad infinitum, ad regress. I mean, the argument, what came first, the egg or the hen or the seed of the tree or the tree that grows out of the seed. There is no end to that argument. So that's why. And how does it happen? This argument is very simple. You perceive something with your mind and that mind vanishes. So the mind, first the mind, the seer, then that object that the mind sees, but they don't coexist together. When the mind emerges, it disappears immediately. And it perceives the object. There is no scope for mind to perceive the object. They don't exist at the same moment. It doesn't happen. So practically, but the mind is the thing or the object is the thing, this argument will continue. The seed or the tree, there is no end to that. So this is the argument that Patanjali puts forward to confront the arguments of the Vijnanavadins, who will tell you that mind is everything. So these are important things. So these are the prasangasya. Smriti sangarascha. Smriti means memory. Sangara means mixing up. This also happens. So as many minds as there are split seconds. And again each mind perceives something. So infinite number of minds and infinite perceptions and infinite number of objects which are perceived. So this will create some kind of a terrible anarchy in the human mind. You won't be able to recollect anything. So logically, Patanjali is trying to bring out the fallacy, the logical fallacy inherent in the Vijnanavadins concept that there is nothing beyond the mind. He points out, first of all, the Buddhist argument that everything is momentary, including mind. So, mind and the perceived object do not coexist at the same split second. So, how can you even think of perception as a possibility? So, there will be total mixing of memory. You won't be able to recollect anything. How we are able to recollect? So, that I want to explain. Recollection means one unchanging subject perceiving a changing object. One unchanging or relatively unchanging subject perceiving a changing object. Then only you can perceive things. For example, our mind is relatively stable compared to let us say a moving object in the street. It also changes, but it goes away. But mind remains there unchanging. The same mind remains after some time to recollect it. Its mood may undergo changes, but mind itself doesn't change. But when we talk about, of course, this is Vedanta. Unlike Buddhism, in Vedanta, mind is relatively unchanging compared to the objects that it is experiencing. So we can easily understand. We see an object in front of us and then we go away somewhere, and then we are able to recollect that object. Why? Because the same mind which has seen that object is now remembering seeing that object. But suppose the mind and also the object together disappear, there is no question of remembrance at all. Now behind the mind, there is Purusha. So when Purusha's reflection enters the mind, then mind is able to perceive things, cognize things, experience things, be subject of things. And through senses, mind is able to understand things, and through the presence of Purusha, mind is able to perceive, recollect and remember. So there is no Smriti Sankara, there is no anarchy. That's because this is Vedantic view, because mind is not as wavering or not as frequently changing as the objects. Objects change all the time. Mind doesn't change as frequently as the object. So mind is able to recollect. Behind the mind there is the unchanging, aparinami Purusha, and the connection or proximity of that Purusha which is completely free from any kind of change, which is totally unchanging. This mind is able to recollect. But remember, this mind also changes eventually. Compared to Purusha, mind will change, of course. That's the idea behind it. So that is the significance of 20th Sutra. So two problems are raised by Yoga Sutra philosophers. One is mixing up of memory. The other one is ad infinitum. These two problems. Ad infinitum is a serious problem in all dialectical confrontations. If you introduce a subject and it creates a kind of endless argument where a conclusion is impossible, it is a fallacy. Of course, it is a fallacy in old Greek philosophy and also in ancient Indian logic, Indian philosophy. So this ad infinitum is a serious drawback, it is a serious fallacy. So anarchy or mixing up of memories and ad infinitum are the two problems that Patanjali points out in this 20th Sutra. Okay, thank you. 21st Sutra is this. Chitehe apradisankramayaha tadakarapattu sabuddhi samvedanam. So here, of course, those who studied the sutra, those who have got the book, you should remember, Chiti is the first singular, it is sixth vibhakti, sixth case ending is Chitehe. Chiti actually means Purusha. Purusha, the ultimate subject in Yoga Sutra. It is the seer. Apradisankramayaha means this Purusha is omnipresent. It is all pervading, and it is at the same time detached, not at all attached to anything. And because of this, what happens? This Purusha, it gets reflected on the mind. You have to remember one important thing. In this Yoga Sutra context, mind or mana, buddhi and vijnana, all these are used interchangeably, unlike in Vedanta. So we have to remember the implications of terms can differ from one philosophical system to another philosophical system. In this context, for example, buddhi and chittam are used interchangeably, which is not acceptable in Vedanta. But in the yoga context, in these sutras, mind can mean chittam, mind can mean intellect, mind also can mean vijnana, because chittam is a term used by Vijnanavada school of philosophers to imply mind for that reason. So, this Purusha reflects on the mental system, and then what happens? The mind, it cognizes the object, because the mind itself takes the form of that object. Tata akara patto. And so that's what really happens, We can see an example. Suppose you see a red flower. Your mind actually takes the form of that red flower. Purusha, the source of effulgence, the source of cognitive faculty, it reflects on the mind. Then mind becomes the seer. The ultimate seer is only Purusha. But mind also becomes the seer, the experiencer, the cognizer, the drashta, because mind reflects the presence of Purusha. And then mind becomes the seer, the subject. And that mind sees a red flower. So this is true in Vedanta Yoga both. And the mind actually assumes the form of the red flower. So actually when you see a red flower, immediately close your eyes. Then try to think of the red flower. Your mind takes that form. When you see a green flower later, white flower later, then that is replaced, the image, the reflection of the red flower is now replaced by the white flower's reflection. So mind actually assumes the form of whatever it cognizes. And this ability comes from close proximity with Purusha. So, and why Purusha alone is able to give this faculty of cognition to the mind? Because Purusha is the only unchanging entity, aparinami. The sutra is central. That is the previous sutra that we discussed. 17th sutra is very, very important in understanding the whole philosophy of Sankhya and Yoga. 17th, which emphasizes the point, Purusha is aparinami. Purusha is the only ultimately unchanging entity. So this again I mentioned this earlier, why Purusha, the unchanging nature of Purusha can be established. Swami Vivekananda gives the example of different changing objects, a fast changing object can be cognized, its change, its movement. A fast moving object can be recognized. Its movement can be recognized by something which is moving less fast, which is lower speed. And another object which is moving even at much slower speed can recognize the movement of the second object which is moving lower speed. And something which remains stagnant all the time, which doesn't move at all, it can recognize the movement of everything. This is an important thing to remember. So Purusha is the only aparinami, the unchanging, the eternal reality. Therefore, the Purusha alone deserves deserves to be called as the ultimate seer, ultimate perceiver, ultimate subject. This is an important thing to remember. Here, of course, this we already discussed this earlier. Next sutra. Of course, before that we have to do little bhashya of the last class, because the 21st sutra bhashya is there. Again, we already discussed, but it is better to remember the ancient words of the ancient sage Vyasa. It makes more authenticity, because this man wrote, and so we know something about Yoga Sutra. Yoga Sutras would have remained very obscure, almost meaningless, if Vyasa had not written the commentary. It's just like the Upanishads. Upanishads would not have made any sense, really speaking, if Shankaracharya had not written a commentary on it. All the Upanishad mantras, if he can, they don't mean anything if you don't have any background of understanding Shankara's philosophy. Even those who contradicted Shankara got what this mantra means only by reading Shankara. He was the one who gave a meaning to this mantra. Similarly, that's true of Vyasa also. So Vyasa, we discussed something earlier. Chittantradrishe buddhi buddhehi adiprasanga smriti sankarascha. We discussed a little, but I shall continue just one important portion, not the whole of it. Atha chittam che chittandrena grihyeda buddhi buddhihi kena grihyede. So listen for it. Suppose we agree with the Buddhists who argue that chittam is the ultimate drashta. But then you have to remember, this chittam, this mind, it changes all the time, all the moment. Why? We should remember, Vijnanavadins who consider chittam or mind as the ultimate seer, they also emphasize the point that everything, including chittam, mind, also changes every split second. So, momentariness is the foundational principle for all schools of Buddhists. Momentariness. It exists only for one moment, not beyond that. So mind also remains only one moment and replaced by new mind comes. Like it goes on. So, if, as the Vijnanavadins argue, the mind were the ultimate cognizer, then the mind should be cognized by another mind. And the second mind should be cognized by the third one. Third one should be cognized by the fourth one. Which mind recognizes what mind? Which mind? What mind recognizes what mind? Because it changes all the moment. This should be kept. I know it's a bit difficult because nobody, except the specialists, read Vijnanavada philosophy, especially the fundamental texts like the work texts of Asanga, Dignaga, and the old well-known book that is Yogachara Bhumi. That's the one of the it's the Bible of Vijnanavada, Yogachara Bhumi it is called. So Alambana Pariksha, Dhammapala, who is a contemporary relative to Shankaracharya in 8th century. So they emphasize the point is mind is the only entity and that mind changes all the time. So what perceives what? So there will be innumerable, infinite number of minds emerging, disappearing, again emerging, disappearing and so on. So what mind cognizes what object? So he says, Grihyada buddhi buddhi kena grihyade. The second mind by whom? Then they may argue chittantara, means another mind recognizes the second mind. Sapi anyaya idi asi prasangaka. And that mind is cognized by another mind, that is cognized by still another mind, and there still another mind. So it continues like that. Vyasa says, Smriti sankarascha yavantaha buddhi buddhinam anubhavaha tavatyaha smritayaha prapnuvanti. And again this anarchy of memories. Suppose you can imagine you have, let us say, millions of minds in your system. And each of these millions of mind has its own memories. So practically it is not even conceivable. It is not even conceivable. So Vyasa is pointing out the inherent fallacy of Vijnanavada school of philosophy. But remember, Vijnanavada school of philosophy emerged almost 300-400 years after Buddha passed away. So you have to remember, Vijnanavada, as that is being discussed here, has nothing to do with Buddha. So people who are devotees of mindfulness or maybe Tibetan Buddhism, they should not get away the impression that Patanjali is quarreling with Buddha. Absolutely wrong. These schools of philosophy emerged Vijnanavada school emerged long after Buddha passed away. And Patanjali system existed much earlier, as I mentioned. So it is just something like, suppose let's say neo-positivism. It's a recent origin, relatively speaking, during the last maybe 100 years or so. Neo-positivism. Today, somebody who is a Neoplatonist, is teaching Neoplatonism, he confronts or contradicts Neo-positivism. You cannot say you are fighting with Plato or Porphyry or Philo. They were the ones who expounded Neoplatonism, the 2nd century AD, 3rd century AD, 2nd century AD. You are not fighting with Plato. You are actually contradicting a system of philosophy which is prevailing now. So remember, today's Neoplatonists can contradict. So, somebody teaching Neoplatonism can contradict Neo-positivism. It's possible. So there is nothing. A Kantian specialist can contradict, let us say, Augustinian theology, what Augustine taught in 6th century AD. They are not fighting with each other. So remember, you have to remember the hundreds of years that separate Buddha and the emergence of Vijnanavada school of philosophy. That should be kept in mind. So fortunately, people don't keep in mind, so they have no problem. So the evolution of philosophy is a grand and beautiful, wonderful subject. If one can enjoy studying those subjects, maybe one can begin with Bertrand Russell's History of Western Philosophy. We arguably still the foundational book for anyone to want to make a serious study of Western philosophy. Though it's not exhaustive, because many things happened since Bertrand Russell wrote that book. It's a different subject. So now, he says, Tasangaraja egasmurti anavadharanam chasyat. So when this mixing up of memories comes, what happens? You will not be able to remember anything distinctly, because mind loses its ability to remember anything distinctly. So that is the problem that Vyasa is referring to here. Now we'll come to the 22nd sutra. Drashtra drisyoho uparaktam chittam sarvartham. So we already discussed this earlier. That is, mind or chittam, it becomes seer. It becomes endowed with the ability for cognition because of close proximity with Purusha, which is the ultimate effulgent principle, subject or drashta. And the same mind cognizes external objects using the 5 senses of perception like eyes, ears and so on. So this sutra tells you that the mind becomes endowed with, literally speaking, mind becomes capable of seeing everything, cognizing everything, because it has got the faculties of seer, cognizer, because it reflects Purusha, and again it is able to connect with external objects through the senses. I shall try to be more explicit. Mind, as you know, it is the mind that cognizes everything. It can understand things, it can analyze things, and it can retain things, it can reproduce in remembrance. All these faculties mind has. So there is a tendency for us to conclude there is nothing beyond mind. Mind is everything. This is the natural tendency for many people, modern materialists. And they will say mind also is a matter. Of course, Yoga Sutra also agrees with the view that mind is matter. But Yoga Sutra tells you that mind reflects something which is not matter. That is Purusha. So modern psychologists may not agree with that. So if you believe in the mind is a neurotic system, kind of cognizing machine made of different nervous systems. But Yoga Sutra philosophers will tell you that that is true, but it has this unique faculty of being a reflecting medium, becoming a reflecting medium, like a mirror of Purusha. And then it becomes endowed with the ability to see, cognize, analyze, remember, and again recollect. So that's one thing. And the same mind is able to connect with a flower, a tree, or ocean, or mountains, or external objects, or human beings, visual beings, through the eyes. Through eyes, you can see visual objects. Through ears, the same mind can hear different things and come to know, become the cognizer of a car in the street by listening to the noise coming from the street, from the car, using the sense of hearing. But mind is the one who actually makes it possible. And mind is able to do that because mind is connected to something other than the mind, and that transcendental something is Purusha. That's what Patanjali is implying here. So what really happens? So mind becomes capable of seeing everything. That's why Chittam Sarvartham. Sarvartha means it is able to cognize and understand all objects because it plays the role of a drashta or cognizer because it is connected to the ultimate cognizer, that is Purusha. And again, it is able to see and understand objects using different senses of perception. So on the one hand, we have this external world that's coming to the mind. On the other hand, the same mind reflects the Purusha, the ultimate cognizer. This makes it possible for mind to cognize everything. That is the meaning of the sutra. Next sutra, 23rd. Tad asankheya vasana bihi chitramapi parartham samkhati akaritvat. This mind, it is a bundle of infinite number of vasanas. What is vasana? Vasana should be understood as samskara here. So what is our mind actually? Tendencies, impressions, feelings, attitudes and aptitudes, preferences, likes and dislikes, prejudices. All these can differ. In a same family, suppose there are 5 children who are absolutely identical, going to the same school, same parentage, same education, same set of circumstances in which they grew up, but 5 entirely different tastes and temperaments and attitudes. Because each of these 5 children, each of them has a separate bundle. And what is that bundle? That bundle is a mixture of infinite number of tendencies, impressions, attitudes accumulated over the last infinite number of life cycles. Each action in all these life cycles will make a contribution. So that's what Patanjali is saying. This mind, asankheya vasana bhihi. Here vasana means karmas, different actions, Karmas produce samskaras, vritti, vasana, samskaras, and they get accumulated in the karmasya, which is a repository of tendencies and impressions called samskaras. It's called karmasya. It's like a huge reservoir, repository, where all that we have done, spoken, thought, all these get deposited. And this constitute our attitude, our personality, not physical personality necessarily, but the psychological structure, psychological personality, so to speak. Chitramabi. Chitram means infinite forms, infinite different types of manifestations. Samkhati akaritvad. And they are these infinite number of tendencies, impressions and attitudes. They are linked, attached to that particular physical body. So let's say a person is born. His physical body we all know, but what he is actually, he minus his physical body. What is that? That is that the personality. What he is. That the physical body is one thing, but apart from that, what is that person? What does he represent? His attitudes, tendencies, impressions, all this. They constitute a complex, a compound, so many things put together. Samkhati means things together. Now, suppose you have a machine, let's say car. A car, how a car is manufactured. So many components come together and form this machine called a car. The very fact that it is not a single simple entity, but so many things put together shows that it is done by somebody other than itself. It did not self-emerge. And then it functions for somebody else. Anything which is a complex or compound entity, it reveals that there is somebody who made it a complex entity. He put things together. With a piece of stone, you need not say the piece of stone, it may be existing on earth. But suppose a number of stones put together forming something like a wall, that shows there is a mason behind. There is a building, there is an engineer behind. Because building is a complex entity. So many things put together is building. But a single piece of stone is, he need not necessarily point to something else. But a structure made of different pieces of stone will immediately imply somebody else who collected all these and put together. So that is the implication here. And who is that one who put together? That is Purusha. So Patanjali is drive again and again. He is saying, look here, even behind this mind, which is on the one hand is this cognizer, and also it is the cognized object so far as Purusha is concerned, and is changing all the time, is able to function as a cognizer or different things using different senses of perception like eyes, ears, etc. So there should be somebody else who is behind it, because mind is a complex entity. If so many things coming together become mind, all the vasanas, samskaras, tendencies accumulated over hundreds of life cycles in the past, how we behave, how we act, how we think, how we interpret a problem, how we confront a problem, all depends upon these samskaras, impressions, tendencies that are lying accumulated in the mental system. It's a whole complex bundle, and a bundle cannot emerge by itself. Somebody must have put many things in that bundle and put together, tied together. Bundle cannot self-emerge. So there is somebody else behind. Who is that? Purusha. And that Purusha is not put into a bundle by somebody, because that Purusha is self-efficient, it is unchanging, is the ultimate unchanging entity. So, Parartham means all these things are functioning for somebody else. And that somebody else is Purusha. Tad asankheya vasanabhigi chittam. Tad here means mind, chittam. Tad, the sutra, tad, frequently translators may not say, they say that. So that here means chittam or mind that we are discussing here. And what is that mind? The mind that Vijnanavadin is considered to be the ultimate entity. Though it is changing all the time, still they give it the status of a categorical imperative, being a categorical imperative. So, Patanjali says, it is this chittam, this mind is a repository of many samskaras and impressions. It is not a single entity. It is a repository, it is a bundle. It is a structure made of different things. Therefore, it implies somebody else who have put these together, who constituted all this together. And that shows somebody else is behind, somebody who is functioning, for whom mind is functioning. And that somebody else is Purusha. So again, he points to the fact there is a Purusha. Next sutra, 24th. Visheshadarshinaha Atma Bhavana Nivrittihi. Visheshadarshinaha means, so those who are endowed with a proper discerning faculty, they are able to get rid of this misconception that mind is Atman, that mind is Purusha, mind is the ultimate entity. See, we have to remember, Swami Vivekananda again connects here with the Atman, because Swamiji was the first great exponent of yoga system in modern times, and he knew very well that yoga philosophers' conclusions make sense only when they are connected to Vedanta. That's an important thing to remember. So, Visheshadarshinaha, I mean those who clearly understand the difference between this chittam or mind of Vijnanavadins and the Purusha of Yoga philosophers, Yoga Sankhya philosophers. You should remember, Yogacara is a system of Buddhist philosophy which is under subjective idealism. Its another name is Vijnanavada, and they believed mind or Vijnanam, that's the term they use, to be the only entity. And in contrast to this, yoga philosophers of Patanjali system, they believe that behind this mind which is changing all the time, there is the Purusha which is unchanging, aparinami. That's the only entity. Mind cannot be. So that should be kept in mind. So those who have the intellectual maturity to distinguish the mind of the Vijnanavadins and the Purusha of yoga philosophers, and realize the fact that Purusha is the only ultimate drashta, seer, subject, they get rid of the wrong impression that mind is the only thing, mind is the ultimate thing. They get rid of this wrong impression. So that's the 24th sutra. This is called Viveka Abhyasa. This yoga system is called Viveka Abhyasa. The continuous practice of this. Well, I'm not my mind. Actually, at a very practical level, if you think you're only the mind, you'll go crazy. Because mind will not give you any peace of mind. That's the interesting thing. Mind will take you to anarchy, the disastrous condition. If a person identifies himself with his mind, then he'll go crazy. Because mind never gives you any peace of mind. It's never happy or contented all the time. It changes all the time. It's subject to changing moods. Happy now, unhappy later, disturbed now, suddenly excitement. One way or other it happens. So at all these times, you should keep in mind, well, I am not my changing mind. I am something unchanging behind all this. That gives you a little peace of mind. In fact, in mindfulness, this is what really happening. In mindfulness, we are actually discerning your mind. You are actually detaching yourself from your changing, mutable mind, or the changeability and mutability of your mind. And for that moment, you feel a peace, little peace. That's what is happening. Any attempt to detach ourselves from this wavering, changing mind will give us a little peace of mind, little happiness, contentment. The moment you identify yourself, in fact, some kind of mania problems and also depression problems, there is so much of obsessive identification with that momentary mood. So, in certain cases of violence, in many cases, the patient identifies himself with that momentary situation. Actually, what is happening is, of course, this is an abnormal system. But you have given an extreme example. So also suppose you have lost money. Suddenly the stock markets collapse, you lose $1 million, become terribly depressed. But then you this will pass on. After all, I need to worry about it. What will happen to me if I lose $1 million? It's not a problem. Actually, without being aware of it, you are identifying yourself with somebody who is other than the mind. If you identify with the mind at that time, then that mind is now worried. It's crying and weeping because you lost $1 million in the stock markets. But suppose you say, this doesn't matter. Why should I worry if I lose the money? There, why should I worry? There, I is not a mind, somebody else actually. Why should I worry if I lose the money? The I, actually you are pointing to somebody other than the mind. The mind is depressed. The depressed mind you don't want to be. You want to get out of this unfortunate, tragic situation. So you want to point to a situation where you are somebody else, something else, who doesn't lose money and who is not experiencing this loss of money. So, if one could identify oneself with other than his mind, it gives you a lot of peace of mind. Again, you have to use the word peace of mind. So, to go beyond mind is actually the purpose of yoga. Yogaka chitta vritti nirodhaka. Nirodha vritti. That means that's the fifth category. I mean, that is kshiptam, mudham, vikshiptam, ekagram. Fifth is niruddham, the niruddha state. There actually you are transcending your mind. So if we can dissociate ourselves from our mind, detach ourselves from our mind, at least for that time, you are enjoying peace of mind, really speaking. So, thank you so much, and we had a wonderful session. And I'm sorry, today I'm sorry I could not, I forgot about the announcement that our Sanjay was supposed to make. Sanjay, would you like to make that statement now? So they will remember, I'm sorry I somehow forgot at the beginning.
No, Maharaj, it is fine. It is fine.
Somehow I forgot. Okay. Okay then, thank you. You are most welcome. Okay. Yeah, please.
So Swami, I think now that you said that
I understand my field, psychology, now, because you said you go crazy. So now I understand the source of all my patients.
Yeah.
Because you said if you identify only with the mind, you go crazy.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
but I have a question about the Purusha. You said at one point that the Purusha is the I think the ultimate decider or something. But I thought the Purusha doesn't do or decide or experience anything.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right. It was a kind of metaphor I'm speaking, Normally, of course, this is a problem of language. So, Purusha is not involved in anything. But Purusha's presence enables the mind to be involved in everything. The ability to cognize external objects, that comes from mind's proximity with Purusha. So in that sense, because without the Purusha reflecting on the mind won't have the ability to become effulgent. In the sense, it will not have the faculty to perceive, cognize things. That's the idea behind it. Yeah.
So like your metaphor of the light bulb, it's the electricity, but the light bulb does
precisely. Yeah, precisely.
Okay.
Yeah. Thank you. That's right. Precisely. Yeah.
Next question is along the same line.
Yeah. Please.
How does the Purusha gets reflected on the mind? How does that naturally happen? And what is that?
Yeah. That's why the yamas and niyamas are the disciplines. Yamas and niyamas will remove the obstacles that stand in the way of Purusha's reflection, really speaking. When we are not able to practice these ahimsa, satya, steya, brahmacharya, aparigraha, shauja, santosha, tapasya, adhyaya, pranidhana, all these 10 disciplines. The first 5 ones are very important. They are called universal. So when we practice them, then mind naturally feels a kind of contentment, lightness, inner fulfillment. That feeling of inner fulfillment shows that this Purusha is reflecting. Remember. Every time when we feel a kind of fulfillment, a kind of bliss, a kind of inner contentment, it comes from Purusha. It can never come from mind itself. Mind is one of the evolutes of Prakriti, which is Jada, which is not effulgent. Effulgence here means it is self-existing and also it's able to illumine other objects. That's the meaning of Purusha being self-effulgent. So, in fact, to confront this problem, Swami Vivekananda links this Purusha concept to Atman. So, you find in Vivekananda's interpretations, he always connects the Purusha ideal to Atman. Actually, Purusha by itself doesn't really make much sense. I want to tell you. The Patanjali yoga system, suppose you go to a yoga studio, you study Yoga Sutras, then you meditate, and then you meditate in some kind of a Purusha. Of course, what is happening is you are actually starting a journey towards your own real self. And the real self is Atman only. So that's why yoga system is considered to be a springboard to Vedanta. It is not complete in itself, it is a springboard. It is a penultimate state. So you should not think, well, let me make my Purusha reflect on my Chittam. It doesn't happen that way. Suppose you read a great book, you do some spiritual practice, you feel a kind of contentment, that means that your little reflection is coming. That's what it means. Yeah.
Will that contentment be similar for all the humans, or will the contentment be different? if Purusha is one, and if one, then all the people should feel the same contentment. Some people might find contentment in selfless service, others by chanting. So, is there a difference if you think Purusha is one?
Yeah, contentment is an inner experience. So, it can only be experienced. We cannot really discuss too much. Kind of inner fulfillment, inner contentment, how do we define it? How do we explain it? We cannot verbalize it, in fact, really speaking. So,
okay,
yeah, right.
David, please go ahead. If you have questions, please you press the raise hand button. David Milstein, please go ahead.
Okay. Yes, sorry I didn't do that. Can you give Swami an example of how past experiences and samskaras affect perception as opposed to the way the mind perceives? I mean, you spoke about the transitory nature of our mental states, but our past experience and past lives forming something through which perception is truer or truth.
Yeah.
Can you give me an example of that?
Yeah. So when we experience certain things, even just like it could be seeing a person, going to a place, reading a book. When all this happens, you feel a kind of inner connectedness that cannot be explained otherwise. That inner connectedness, I have been here. Swami Vivekananda talks about this phenomenon. When you go to a place, you feel, I have been here earlier. Or I'm familiar with this idea. It's not new to me. And sometimes at some stage in our life, when we connect with some higher idea, we are able to completely remove all previous impressions from our mind. This new ideal, the new way of life, the new maybe spiritual ideal that you suddenly experience now, that you cognize now, seem to completely replace all previous ideas and cognitions. You feel, this is my... So that kind of inner connectedness, that is a proof, if at all we can, that's all we can do. You can prove it in a laboratory, at empirical level we cannot really prove it. But that's one logical way of explaining this. This feeling of inner connectedness. We feel that comes, and you are able to feel at home with that idea, with that new idea, with that new place. Feel the feeling at home. And now, if there is no way to explain this inner connectedness, that means there was a background of samskaras which make you feel at home with that new idea, without you cognize. So that's one way of logically explaining this. There is no other way. The reincarnation and law of karma cannot be proved empirically. But there are experiences in our life which make us believe they are more scientific and more lasting than many of the scientific discoveries. We keep changing from time to time. The relevance of one scientific paradigm can change. May not become irrelevant, but the relevance, there will be more discoveries which may prove that what we thought till yesterday, till the other year, was only half true. But certain principles, certain invisible connecting links that we feel in our life, they seem to be more lasting, though we cannot prove them empirically. That's the problem. What can be proved empirically can always be disproved empirically. Or their relevance can change. They become less relevant or less true. So that's the only way we can do. So again, this feeling of feeling at home, this fulfillment, this inner connectedness is linked to the doctrine of law of karma and also this belief in reincarnation. That's all we can do. Yeah.
Yogi, I think your hand is up next, and then Mark.
Pranam Maharaj.
Namaskar.
And can you hear?
Yeah, please.
Pranam.
Yeah.
In 24 Sutra, the word asankhya is used. There are other words like anantam, anadi, and what are the differences between these conceptually?
Oh yeah, asankhya. Asankhya means you cannot count them. You cannot count them. You cannot say exactly how many. So ananta means endless. Asankhya also means you cannot really put a definite number beyond. It is innumerable. You cannot count them. Ananta means endless. So asankhya vasanabhi means asankhya vasanabhi chitra means structured or characterized by innumerable number of vasanas, samskaras, tendencies. That's how our mind is, chittam. That's the idea behind.
So it's
anadi. Sorry. I forgot. Anadi. Anadi means beginningless. Adi means beginning. Anadi means beginningless. That's the idea. You use that. Sorry. Now please continue, Yogi. Please continue.
So they all refer to infinite in a way?
In a way, they mean infinite. Yeah, they mean. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Please go ahead, Mark. You need to unmute yourself first, Mark. We can't hear you yet.
Pranam Maharaj.
No.
I was wondering if you could help me understand a phrase from this book that I'm reading. It's called The Vedanta Way to Peace and Happiness.
Yeah.
This is the beginning of the book where it talks about the message of Vedanta, and it describes the different principles of Vedanta. And the first one is ultimate reality.
Yeah.
And it says, the ultimate reality, according to Vedanta, is all-pervading pure consciousness, one without a second, beyond all name, form,
Yeah.
and epithet.
Yeah.
The various names, forms, and epithets used by the different religions to describe the ultimate reality are merely attempts to name the nameless and attribute form and epithet to that which defies all names, forms, and epithets. I'm not really familiar with this word. I've looked up the meaning, but I'd like to ask you what exactly is an epithet in describing ultimate reality?
Yeah. Characterizations, words that explain things. So the absolute reality cannot be defined, cannot be verbalized, cannot be explained. But still, Satyam, Jnanam, Anantam, these three terms are used as attempts to explain what is beyond explanation. So, in the Vedantic tradition, in the Taittiriya Upanishad, it comes in the second chapter. It comes the analysis of the 5 sheets, Panchakosha Vivarana. the physical, that is Annamaya Kosha, and then the vital, and the mental, the intellectual, and then the higher Anandamaya Kosha, the spiritual, which closest to the reality. So, in that paragraph, there is a statement: Brahmavid apnodi param tadesha bhyukta satyam jnanam anandam brahma yo veda nihidam guhayam. Like that. It goes like that. The simple thing I will explain. Satyam jnanam anandam brahma. Well, the absolute reality is truth, knowledge and bliss. The absolute truth, the absolute knowledge, the absolute bliss. Now, how do you reconcile with the idea that the absolute reality is beyond explanation while using these terms Satyam, Jnanam, Anantam, Brahma? So Shankaracharya considers this as an attempt to explain in words what is actually beyond explanation. We call Lakshana Vakya. So like Lakshana Vakya, for example, in the commentaries you find, suppose you want to point out something far away. Let's say there is a distant star in the sky, and you want to point out the position of the star to your friend. First, you may ask him to focus on your finger, and then maybe a tree above, and then may ask him to focus on a bright star which is visible for everyone, and then you may ask him to concentrate somewhere in the close proximity of that bright big star a small star which is not clearly visible. So this is a technique, it's called Arundhadina. It's a technique, a method of helping a person to point out something which is far away, but still it is helpful, because if you concentrate on the finger of the star which is focusing, and if you closely follow, you can get a distant, vague view of that star far away. But again, you are not clearly understanding the position of the star. You get a vague picture. So, Satyam, Jnanam, Anantam, Brahma, the absolute truth, the absolute infinitude, the absolute knowledge, the absolute bliss, all we can put together. It is an approximation, not something equal, but it's an approximation. It's not a definition, but only an approximation. All books in this world, including the Upanishads, are only approximations. If you tell, well, this book, you leave this is fine, everything is fine. This is God, all God's wisdom contained in these books. Actually, even you cannot tell even an ordinary, you cannot tell a student, well, I have got a book which contains all that you know. You consider you are insulting him, because he may have read many more books. Even an ordinary graduate in any university may have read many books. If you tell him, well, I have got a book in front of me and this book contains all your wisdom, you consider you are insulting him. If you say the absolute reality is enshrined in a single book, or God's wisdom is enshrined in a single book, it is the greatest sacrilege, greatest blasphemy. So all books, Vedanta tells you, all the Upanishads, including Gita, Brahmastra, everything, constitute only approximations of the absolute. It's an important thing. Well, to say New Testament and Jesus, do you think that printed book in front on your table is greater than Christ. Christ, the personality, is far greater than the book that is sitting on your table. The book is only made of pulp, and people print millions of copies of that book. If one book is lying on your table, this book contains better. So the Christ ideal, and to give an example from Christian context, the Christ ideal far transcends, goes beyond the book actually. Actually, there's a long distance from a visible presentation to a universal spiritual ideal. So, Satyam, Jnanam, Anantam, Brahma constitute only approximations to define, in our attempt to explain or define the infinite. So this understanding. So that's the real meaning here. The Satyam, Jnanam, Anantam, the absolute truth, the absolute knowledge, and absolute bliss. These are all epithets. These are all epithets. These are all terms, verbal attempts to explain. These are all epithets. Yeah. Let's use what are epithets. Yeah.
He concludes, Vedanta asserts that truth is one. Sages call it by various names.
That's true. Truth is one. That is again, if we come to the Old Testament, in the Filbert Street entrance, we find it is enshrined here, 1905. That is Ekam Sat Vipra Bahudha Vadanti. It comes from Rigveda Samhita, first mandala. Truth is one, sages call it by different names. It's from Rigveda Samhita. Here, truth, he means the spiritual experience. That's the meaning of the truth here. Truth means the spiritual experience. Not empirical truth, not a factual truth, but the absolute reality, the spiritual, the absolute, the ultimate spiritual experience, which is eternal. So it is real, it is true with the capital letter T. It is true. And that is one. And that truth may be experienced, could be experienced in different traditions, different religions, different faith systems, in so many different ways. Very often we should remember, called by various names, they refer to different books or different definitions found in different religious traditions, philosophical traditions. For example, Buddhism as a vocabulary which is very similar to Hinduism, because of the closeness, similarity in geographical, cultural, socio-anthropological conditions under which Buddhism and Hinduism evolved and developed. So Jainism and Sikhism, all of them have almost identical stories, parables, examples, analogies, and so on. Many of Buddha's parables are taken from Puranas, some of them taken from Panchatantra, Katharsari Sagar. These are all old ancient Hindu mythological books. So, even now coming to Jesus, for example. And Jesus' parables are taken from a different socio-anthropological cultural tradition, the ancient Jewish tradition, the pastoral culture. People traveling to different places, Samaria or Syria or Egypt and all those places, you can find the geographical regions and the food habits, the dress codes, the belief systems, the mythologies, all these are similar, like that. So, and so in one tradition, the absolute reality may be intellectually understood using certain vocabularies and definitions and verbalizations, words. In another tradition, in a different way, so socio-anthropological conditions. But is a mystic, a person who has reached the experience level in one tradition, if he meets another sage from an entirely different tradition, growing up in entirely different socio-anthropological conditions, but having the similar experience, there will be no conflict. At the level of philosophy, theology, rituals, there will be no similarities. Maybe some similarities, but they will never be identical. But when you reach the experience level, there will be no conflicts. So sages call it by different names. Different names are different definitions, different approaches in different religious traditions. This is the foundational principle upon which Hinduism is built. Yeah. And more or less you find many mystics. I'm a student of Christian mysticism, really speaking. I find in their lives at some stage they are transcending all the limiting factors. They are connecting with something transcendental. In their writings and words, there is something very similar to what I have myself found in the ancient Hindu traditions. But of course there are differences because of the, again, socio-anthropological conditions can have the impact, and they make some differences. But beyond these differences, there is an underlying unifying principle of oneness, and that is the spiritual experience that goes beyond rituals and theology and philosophy. That's what is implied by the ekam sat bahuda vipraha bahuda vadanti. Vipra means the sages, those who are knowledgeable. They called and defined by different names. That's the idea. Thank you, Mark. Thank you. Yeah.
Beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Sanjay.
Raj, one quick question, technical.
Yeah.
You mentioned about the karmashraya.
Karmashraya. Asya means repository. Karmashraya.
Karmashraya. I thought chitta was the repository of all experiences, and you mentioned chitta also changes like mind. I thought chitta was the karmashraya. Can you explain the different chitta related to karmashraya, and also why chitta changes? I thought it was a repository. Maybe I misunderstood.
Okay, I will tell you. So, the karmas belong to two categories. Certain karmas which find a fulfillment, fruition in one's own life. And many karmas do not reach their fulfillment, fruition in one life. So they are spread over different life cycles. For example, suddenly at one stage in your life you feel a kind of inner spiritual inspiration. That's because the old samskaras which you built up in your previous life cycle, which are deposited in the karmasaya, suddenly come up when circumstances become conducive to them. So chittam is the mental system. In one life, our mind, our chittam, absorbs and collects all memories, tendencies, impressions, and so on. Some of them find a fulfillment. For example, you wanted to buy a car. That desire doesn't go to karmasya. You buy a car, it is gone. You won't go to travel to one place. Once you do it, it's gone. And you want to get a job, one specific job. Once you get it, that desired tendency is gone. But there are some tendencies. For example, when you read a book, then you read the life of a sage, a saint, or if only I could become like that. It doesn't happen in this life, perhaps. We may read, that desire will continue, but it may not happen in this life. So that desire goes to karmasya, and that can influence several life cycles in future. Okay, so there are many desires which are fulfilled in one life, in the present life, but many of them do not get fulfillment or fruition in one life. They go to karmasya, they remained accumulated there. So that repository of desires and tendencies and impressions and vasanas and samskaras, which are accumulated in that system, which are spread over several life cycles, which influence our actions, sometimes we suddenly may come to the surface and make a difference in our life, sometimes a turning point in our life. These are karmasya samskaras. Okay, that's it. Chitta samskaras and karmasya samskaras, two different. Okay, thank you. So thank you very much for the questions. And so as I mentioned, these classes are available in Stanford Students Association's YouTube. It can be found in our own YouTube systems. So, and also New York Vedanta Society's YouTube system you can find. So, of course, they upload a few days later. Most welcome. Okay. Thank you. Om Shanti 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 Harihi Om Tat Sat Sri Ramakrishna Arpanamastu.